Tired. So tired. Overtired.
Welcome back. You're listening to Overtired. I'm Christina Warren, joined as always by Brett Terpstra. Jeff Severns Guntzel could not be with us this week, but Brett and I are here. So, Brett, how are you? How's the cold?
The cold. So I'm going on day 4 without running water. I drove to my parents last night to shower, and we're driving loads of dishes to friend's house to wash them. We have big buckets of melted snow in our bathtub that we use to flush the toilet. And we have like big jugs with a spout on them for drinking water. So we're surviving, but it is highly inconvenient. And we don't know yet if it's a frozen pipe or if we have a bad pump on our well. Hopefully we'll find that out today, but no guarantees because all the plumbers are very busy right now with negative 30-degree weather. They tend to get a lot of calls. Lots of stuff happens. So yeah, but I'm staying warm. I got a fireplace. I got my heat's working.
Well, and that's the important thing.
And that went out twice already this winter. Our heat has gone out. Which I'm thankful. We finally added glycol to our heat pumps water through like, it's not radiators, it's like baseboard heat, but it uses water. And we were getting like frozen spots, not burst pipes, just enough that the water wouldn't go through fast enough to heat anything. So we added glycol to that system to bring the freeze point down to like 0 degrees. So it's not perfect, but we also hardwired the pump so that it always circulates water, even when the heat's not running. So hopefully it'll never freeze again. That's the goal. And if we replace the well pump, that should be good for another 20 years. So hopefully after this, things will be smoother. Yeah, but that's all in addition to, my state being occupied by federal agents. And even in my small town, we've got people being like abducted. Things are escalating quickly at this point. And a lot of it doesn't get talked about on mainstream media. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think we're making progress because apparently Bovino's getting retired.
I was going to say I heard that, and I don't know if that's good or if that's bad. I can't tell.
It's like if Trump died, we wouldn't know if that was good or bad because JD Vance as president, like maybe things get way worse. Who knows? None of these actual figureheads are the solution. Removing them isn't the solution to removing the kind of MAGA philosophy behind it. But yeah, and that's also Jeff is, highly involved, and I won't talk about that for him. I hope we can get him on soon to talk about that.
No, me too, because I've been thinking about him and about you and about your whole area, your communities, from several thousand miles away. Like all we see is either what people post online, which of course now is being suppressed. Thanks a lot. Like TikTok was going to be so terrible. The Chinese are going to take over our algorithms, right? No, Larry Ellison is actually going to completely, fuck up the algorithms, and suppress anything negative. Yeah, they're suppressing anything
TikTok,
negative of Trump.
Well, because Victor was telling me that they were seeing videos. You would see one frame of the video and then it would black out, and it all seemed to be videos that were negative towards the administration. And we weren't sure, is this a glitch? Is this coincidence?
Well, they claim it's a glitch, but I don't believe it.
Yeah, it seems uncanny.
I mean, the thing is, like, maybe it is. Maybe it is a glitch and we're overreacting. I don't know. All I know is that they've given us absolutely zero reason to trust them, and so I don't. And so, apparently the state of California, so we're recording this on Tuesday morning. Apparently the state of California has said that they are going to look into whether things are being, suppressed or not, and if that's violating California law. Because now that TikTok is controlled by an American entity, even if it is, owned by like a, evil billionaire, crony stooge, fuck you, Larry Ellison. I guess that means we won't be getting an Oracle sponsorship. Sorry. Um,
I
uh,
wouldn't take it anyway.
I know you wouldn't. I know you wouldn't. That's why I felt safe saying that. But even if that were the case, like but apparently, like now that it is like a kind of state-based like U.S. thing, like California could step in and potentially make things difficult for them. I mean, I think that's probably a lot of bluster on Newsom's part. I don't think that he could really honestly achieve any sort of change if they are doing things to the algorithm.
Yeah.
Um,
If laws even matter anymore, it would be
right.
something that got tied up in court for a long time. And
Right, which effectively wouldn't matter, right? And then that opens up a lot of other interesting things about like, okay, well, should we like what is the role like even for algorithmically determined things of the government to even step in or whatever, right? Now, obviously, it does I think become like more of a speech issue if it's government speech that's being suppressed, but regardless, it's bad. So I've been thinking about you. I've been thinking about Jeff. We all saw what happened over the weekend,
yeah,
and people are being murdered in the streets, and I mean that's what's happening, and
white people no
um,
less.
it's right. Well, I mean that's the thing, right? Like, is that like, but they keep moving the bar, they keep moving the goalpost, right? So first it's a white woman, and oh, she was running over the
Right.
officer or the ICE guy. And it's like, no, she wasn't. But that's immediately where they go. And she's, radical, whatever, and a terrorist and this and that. Okay. Then you have a literal Veterans Affair nurse, right?
Mhm.
Like somebody who literally like, has worked with combat veterans and has done those things, who is stepping in to help someone who's being pepper sprayed, is just observing. And because he happens to have a, a a gun on him legally, which he's allowed to do, um, they immediately use that as cover
Mhm.
to execute him. But if he hadn't
Yeah.
had the gun, they would have come up with something else. Oh, we thought he had
Yeah.
a gun, and
Well,
you know what I mean.
and
So like they got lucky with that one because they removed the weapon and then shot him 10 times. They literally
right.
executed him in the street. But if he
Yeah.
hadn't had a gun, they still would have executed him.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's really frustrating that they took the gun away. So he was
Yep.
disarmed and immobilized, and then they shot him. So that's
Yeah.
just a straight up execution. And then to say that he because he had a gun, he was dangerous is such
Right.
an affront to
Correct.
America has spent so long fighting against gun control and saying that we have the right to carry
Correct.
fucking assault rifles in the
Kyle
street.
Rittenhouse
Yeah.
Kyle Rittenhouse was literally acquitted, right?
Yeah.
And
And
the
he
thing
killed
is,
people.
and he killed people. He was literally walking around little fucking stoogey, little blubbering little bitch, like, crying. He's like carrying around like Rambo a gun and literally snipe shooting people.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And they defended
But if you
him.
have and they defended him, of course they did, right? Of course they did. Oh, well, he has the right to carry and this and that, and oh, you should be able to be armed in these places. Oh no. But if you're somebody that we don't like
Yeah.
and you have a concealed carry permit, and I don't even know if he was really concealed, right? Because I think that if you have it on your holster, I don't even think that counts as
It was
concealed,
it
to be
was
honest.
supposedly in his
I don't
waistband. Like, it
right,
was
which I don't
visible,
think counts as
apparently.
concealed. I think that
No.
right, right. So that wouldn't be concealed. I mean, because you have someone in that situation, then all of a sudden, oh no, now they keep moving the goalposts. Okay, well, it's fine if it's police we don't like or other people, and if you're going after protesters, then you can shoot and kill whoever you want, because you've perceived a threat and you can take actions into your own hands. But now, if you are even a white person, even someone who's worked in Veterans Affairs, whatever, if you have even if you're like a gun owner and have permits. Um, Now, if we don't like you and you are anywhere in the vicinity of anybody associated with law enforcement, now they have the right to shoot you dead. Like
Yeah.
that's the argument, which is insanity.
So I'm just going to point out that as the Third Reich came to power, they disarmed the Jews and they disarmed the anarchists and the socialists and they armed the rest of the population, and it became gun control for people they didn't like. Um, and it's just straight up the same playbook. There's no differentiation anymore.
No, it actively makes me angry that because what can we do? And what they're counting on is the fact that we're all tired and we're all kind of,
Mhm.
like just from what happened 6 years ago and what happened 5 years ago, and various things. I think a lot of people are just kind of like
Sure. But
done with being able to right. But now the actual fascism is here, right?
right.
Like we
And
saw a whiff of this on January 6th, but now
yeah,
it's actual fascism, and they
yeah,
control every branch of government.
yeah.
And um and I don't know what we're supposed to do, right? Like, I mean, because Philadelphia is begging for them to come, and I think that would be an interesting kind of standoff. Seattle this is what a friend of mine said. It was like, Philadelphia is begging them to come. Seattle is like scared
Mhm.
that they're going to come, because honestly, like, we're a bunch of little bitch babies, and people think they're like, oh, you're the WTO. I'm like, yeah, that was 27 years ago. I don't think that Seattle has the juice to hold that sort of line again. But I also don't want to find out, right? Like, but this is the attack thing. It's like, okay, why are they in Minnesota? Right? They're what, like 130,000
Yeah, exactly.
undocumented
Right.
immigrants in Minnesota. There are however many million in Texas, however many million in Florida. We know exactly why, right? This isn't
Yeah.
about anything more than
Immigration in any
punishment
way.
and
Yeah.
right. Right. It has nothing to do with immigration anyway. I mean, even the Wall Street Journal,
Right.
who ran an op-ed basically saying get out of Minnesota. They also had like a news story which was not from the opinion board, which like broke down the footage showing that like the video footage doesn't match the administration's claims. But they also ran a story, that basically did the math, I guess, on, like, the number of criminals, or people with criminal records who have been deported. And at this point, like, and when things started out, like, I guess when the raids started out, the majority of the people that they were kind of going after were people who had criminal records. Now, whether they were really violent, the worst, I mean, that's I'm not gonna get into that, but you could at least say, like, they could at least say, "Oh, well, these were people who had criminal records," whatever. Now, some huge percentage, I think it's close to 80%, don't have anything, and many of the people that do, the criminal, like, thing that they would hold would be, some sort of visa violation, right? So
Well,
it's just
they
such a
deported a
farce.
5-year-old kid after using him as bait to try to get the rest of his
As
family.
bait. Mhm.
Yeah. And like it's pretty deplorable, but I will say I am proud of Minnesota. They have not backed down. They have stood up in the face of increasingly escalated attacks, and they have shown up in force, thousands of people out in the streets. Like, like last night they had well, yeah, I mean it's been ongoing, but what's his name? Preddy? Alex? At the place where he was shot, they had a like continuing kind of
Yeah.
memorial protest, I guess. And there's footage of like a thousand Minneapolites surrounding about 50 ICE agents and like basically corralling them to the point where they were all backed into a corner and weren't moving. And I don't know what happened after that. But thus far, it hasn't been violent on the part of protesters. It's been very violent on the part of ICE. I personally, I don't know where I stand on, like, I feel like the Democrats are urging pacifism because it affects their hold on power.
Hmm.
And I don't necessarily think that peace, when they're murdering us in the street, I don't know if peace is the right
Right.
response. But I don't know. I'm not openly declaring that I support violence at this point. But at the same time, do I not? I'm not sure. Like, I keep going back and forth on, is it time for a war? Or do we try to
No,
vote our way out of this?
well, and the scary thing about voting our way out of this is, will we even be able to have free elections,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Because they're using any sort of anything, even the most
Oh,
benign sort of
well,
legal protest, even if violence isn't involved, then all of a sudden talks of the Insurrection Act come into
yeah.
play,
And
right?
Trump
And
offered to pull out of Minnesota if Minnesota will turn over its voter database to the federal government. Like, that's just blatant. Like, that's obviously the end goal is suppression.
right, right, and so to your point, I don't know, right? And I'm never somebody who would want to advocate outwardly for violence, but I don't know. I mean, they're killing citizens in the streets. They're assassinating people in cold blood. They're executing people, right? That's what they're doing. They're literally executing people in the
And
streets
if
and
the
then covering it
argument
up in real
is
time.
if we're violent, it will cause them to kill us, they're already killing
They're
us.
already doing
So
it, right? So at this point, I mean, like, like, w to your point, wars have been started for for less or for the
yeah,
exact same things.
yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I know that that's a depressing way to probably do mental health corner and whatnot, but this is what's happening in our world right now and in your community, and it's terrifying.
I'm going to link in the show notes an article from Crime Think that was written by people in Germany who have studied both historical fascism and the current rise of the AfD, which will soon be the most powerful party in Germany, which is straight up a Nazi party. Um, and they offered, like, their hope right now lies in America stopping fascism. Like,
Yeah,
if we can stop fascism, then they believe the rest of Europe can stop fascism. But like, it's a good article. It kind of broaches the same questions I do about, like, is it time for violence? And they offer, like, we're not advocating for a civil war, but like, civil wars might, if you if you if you broach them as revolutions, it's they're kind of the same thing in cases like this. So
right.
anyway, I'll link that for anyone who wants to read kind of what's going on in my head. I'm making a note to dig that out. I love Crime Thing. Oh, and Blue Sky. Um, so I have not up until very recently been an avid Blue Sky user. I
Yeah.
think I have like I think I have maybe like 200 followers there, and I follow like 50 people, but I've been expanding that, and I am getting a ton of my news from Blue Sky, and like, to get stories from people on the ground, like, news as it happens, unfiltered, and Blue Sky has been really good for that. I it's there's not like an algorithm. I just get
Right.
my stuff. And like Mastodon, I have a much larger following and I follow a lot more people, but it's very tech.
It's
Like,
very
that's
tech
what I'm there
and
for.
well, and Mastodon, understandably too, is also European, in a lot of regards, and so it's not gonna have the same amount of people who are gonna be able to, at least for instances like this, like, be on the ground and doing real time stuff. It doesn't have, like, the more normie stuff, so no, that makes sense. No, that's great. I think, yeah, Blue Sky's been really good for these sorts of real time events because, again, they don't have an algorithm. Like, you can have one, like, for a personalized kind of, like, For You feed or whatever,
Right.
but in terms of what you see, you see it naturally. You're not seeing it being adjusted by anything, which can be good and bad. I think it's good because nothing's suppressing things and you see things in real time. It can be bad because sometimes you miss things, but I think on the whole, it's better. The only thing I will say just to anyone listening and just to spread on to, people in your communities too, from what I've observed from others, like, it does seem like the government and other sorts of, you know, bodies like that are finally starting to pay more attention to blue sky in terms of monitoring things. And so that's not to say don't, use it at all, but the same way you don't make threats on Twitter if you don't want the feds to show up at your house,
Yeah.
don't make threats on blue sky because it's not just a little microcosm where, no one will see it. People are it's still small, but it's getting bigger to the point that, like, when people look at, like, where some of the fire hose, things, observable things are, there seem to be more and more of them located in the Washington, D.C. area, which could just be because data centers are there. Who knows? But I've also just seen anecdotally, like, people who have had, like, other instances. It's like, don't think that, like, "Oh, okay, well, no one's monitoring this." Of course people are, so just don't be dumb. Don't say
Yeah.
things that could
A,
potentially get you in trouble. Um,
a political candidate in Florida had the cops show up at her house and read her one of her Facebook posts. Like, I mean,
right.
this was local cops, but still. Yeah, you
Right.
gotta
Well, yeah,
watch what
that's the
you
thing,
say.
right? No, totally. And my only point with that is we've known that they do that for Facebook and for Twitter and Instagram and things like that. But Blue Sky, like, I don't know if it's on background checks yet, but it like for jobs and things like that. I don't know if that's happening, but it definitely is at that point where I know that people are starting to monitor those things. So just not even saying for you per se, but just for anybody out there, like, it's awesome, and I'm so glad that, like, that's where people can get information out, but don't be, like, lulled into this false sense of security, like, "Oh, well, they're not gonna monitor this, they're not
Yeah,
gonna see
nobody's
this."
watching me here.
Oh, it's
Right.
like, no, they are. So, especially as it becomes, more prominent. So I'm glad that that's an option there too. Um, okay, this is, like, the worst possible segue ever, but should we go ahead and segue to our sponsor break?
Let's do it.
Alright.
Let's talk about capitalism.
All right. This episode is brought to you by Copilot Money. Copilot Money is not just another finance app, it's your personal finance partner designed to help you feel clear, calm, and in control of your money. Whether it's tracking your spending, saving for specific goals, or simply getting a handle on your investments, Copilot Money has you covered. As we enter the new year, clarity and control over our finances has never been more important. With the recent shutdown of Mint and rising financial stress for many, consumers are looking for a modern, trustworthy tool to help navigate their financial journeys. That's where Copilot Money comes in. With this beautifully designed app, you can see all your bank accounts, spending, savings, and goals and investments all in one place. Imagine easily tracking everything without the clutter of chaotic spreadsheets or outdated tools. It's a practical way to start 2026 with a fresh financial outlook. And here's the exciting part. As of December 15th, Copilot Money is now available on the web, so you can manage your finances on any device that you choose. Plus, it offers a seamless experience that keeps your data secure with a privacy-first approach. When you sign up using our link, you'll get 2 months for free. So visit try.copilot.money/overtired to get started. With features like automatic subscription tracking, so you never miss a renewal date, and customizable savings goals to help you stay on track, Copilot Money empowers you to take charge of your financial life with confidence. So, why wait? Start 2026 with clarity and purpose. Download Copilot Money on your devices or visit try.copilot.money/overtired today to claim your 2 months free and embrace a more organized, stress-free approach to your finances. Try.copilot.money/overtired.
Awesome. That I appreciate this segue because we could be talking about other things.
Yeah.
Um, like it feels so weird. Like when I go on social media and I just want to post that like my water's out, it feels out of place right now because there's everything that's going on feels so much more important
Right.
than anything else. But there's still a place for living our lives
No,
as
there
best
are.
we can.
Absolutely. I mean, and in a certain extent, like not to, I mean, maybe this is a little bit of a cope, but it's like if all we do is focus on the things that we can't control at the expense of everything else, it's like then they win, you know?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
which isn't even to say like don't talk about what's happening, don't try to help, don't try to speak out and do what we can do, but also like as individuals there's very little we can control about things, and being completely, you know, subsumed by that is not necessarily good either. So yeah, there are other things going on, and it's important for us to get out of our heads. It's important, especially for you, you know, being in the region, I think, to be able to focus about other things, and hopefully your water will be back soon because that
Yeah.
sucks. Like that, I've been worried about you. I'm glad that you have heat. I'm glad you have internet. I'm glad you have power, but you know the pipes being frozen and all that stuff is like not good.
The internet has also been down for up to 6 hours at a time. I don't know why. There's, like, an amplifier down on our street, and that has sucked because I out here, I live in a I'm not gonna call it rural. We're, like, 5 minutes from town, but, um, we we don't we have shitty internet. Like, I pay for a gigabit, and I get 500 megabits, and it's and it's up and down all the time, and I hate it. But anyway, let's talk about Gastown. What can you
Yeah.
tell me about Gastown?
Okay, so we've talked a lot about like AI agents and kind of like coding loops and things like that. And so Gastown, which is available at it is not gas.town. Let me find the URL. Um, it's, uh, it's it's at Gastown. No, it's not. Let me find it. Um, All right, so this is a thing that Steve Yagi has created, and it is a multi-agent workspace manager. And so the idea is basically that you can be running like a lot of instances of Claude code, or I guess you could use Codex, you could use the Copilot SDK or CLI agent and whatnot. And basically, what it's designed to do is to basically let you coordinate like multiple coding agents at one time, so they can all be working on different tasks, but then instead of having, like, the context get lost when agents restart, it creates like a persistent, like, work state which it uses with Git on the back end, which is supposed to basically enable more multi-agent workflows. So, basically, the idea would be like you could have multiple agents working at once, kind of talking to one another, handing things off, you know, each doing their own task, and then coordinating the work with what the other ones are doing. But then you have like a persistent I guess kind of like, you know, layer in the back end so that if an agent has to restart or whatever, it's not going to lose the context that's happening, and you don't have to manually worry about things like, okay, you know, I've lost certain things in memory, and I've, you know, don't know how I'm managing all these things together. There's another project called Ralph, which is kind of based on this concept of like what if Ralph Wiggum was, you know, coding or was doing kind of a loop, and it's kind of a similar idea.
My
There's
doctor
also
said my nose wouldn't bleed so much if I just got my finger out of there.
exactly. My cat's breath smells like cat food. Um, and so like there are ideas of like Ralph loops and gas hound. And so these are a couple of like projects that have really started to take over. So like Ralph is more of an autonomous AI agent loop that basically like it runs like over and over and over again until a task is done. And a lot of people use Gastown and Ralph together. But yeah, no, Gastown is pretty cool. Well, we're gonna talk about it more because it's my pick of the week. We'll talk about Moltbot, previously known as Claudebot, which is uses some similar ideas. But it's really been interesting to see like how like the multi-agent workflow, and by multi-agents, I mean like people are running like 20 or 30 of them, you know, at a time, sometimes more than that, is really starting to become a thing that people uh can do.
God,
Um,
that gets
and
expensive though.
I was just about to say that's the one thing, right? Most people who are using things like Gastown are using them with the Claude Code Max plans, which is $200 a month.
Yeah.
And those plans do give you more value than like what it would be if you spent $200 on API credits. But $200 a month, like that's not inexpensive. That's, like, you know what I mean? Like that's a lot of money to spend on these sorts of things. But people are getting good results out of it. It's pretty cool. Um, w- there have been some open models, which of course most people don't have equipment that would be fast enough for them to run, to be able to kind of do what they would want reliably. But the agentic stuff coming to some of the open models is better. And so if these things can continue, of course, now we're in a RAM crisis and storage crisis and everything else. So who knows when the hardware will get good enough again, and when we as consumers can even reasonably get things ourselves. But in theory, if these sorts of things continue, I could see like a world where like, some of the Quan models and some of the other things potentially, or Quinn models rather, could be things that you could conceivably like be running on your own equipment to run these sorts of nonstop agentic loops. But yeah, right now, like it's really freaking cool. And I've played around with it because I'm fortunate enough to have access to a lot of tokens. But yeah, it can get expensive real fast.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty awesome.
I do appreciate that. So Gastown, the name is a reference to Mad Max.
Yeah.
And in the kind of vernacular that they built for things like background agents, and I there's a whole bunch, there are different levels of the interface that they kind of extrapolated on the Gastown kind of metaphor for. There were some interesting naming conventions, and then they totally went in other directions with some of the names. They didn't keep the theme very well, but still, I appreciate Ralph Wiggum and Mad Max. That's at the very least, it's interesting.
No, it definitely is. It definitely is. I will say that there's been like a little bit of a kerfuffle involved in both of those developers because they're both now promoting shitcoins.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of an interesting thing. Basically, there's like this crypto company called Bags that I guess apparently, like if people want to, they will create crypto coins for popular open source projects. And then they will designate someone to, I guess, get the gas fees in a Solana parlance. No pun intended with the gas town, where basically like that's like the fees that you spend to have the transaction work off of the blockchain, right? Like especially if there's a lot of time that it would take, like you pay a certain percentage of something, and like those fees could be designated to an individual. And in this case, like both of these guys were reached out to, and basically they were like, hey, this coin exists. You've got all this money just kind of sitting in a crypto wallet waiting for you. Take the money, get the transaction fees, so to speak. And I mean, I think that's if you want to take that money, right, it's there for you. I'm not going to certainly judge anyone for that.
Sure.
What I will judge you for is if you then promote your shitcoin to your community and basically kind of encourage everyone to kind of buy into it. Maybe you put in the caveat, oh, this isn't financial advice. Oh, this is all just for whatever.
Right.
But you're trying to do that. And then you go one step beyond, which I think is actually pretty dumb, which is to be like, okay, well, because like, here's the thing. I'm not going to judge anyone if someone is like, hey, here's a wallet that we're going to give you and it has real cash in it and you can do whatever you want with it. And these are the transaction fees, so to speak, like, the gas fees, whatever. You know what? You do you, even if you want to let your audience know that you've done that and maybe you're promoting that, maybe some people will buy into it. Like people are adults, fine. Where I do like side eye a little bit is if you are then for whatever reason going to be like, oh, I'm going to take my fees and I'm going to reinvest it in the coin.
Mm.
Like, okay, you're literally sitting on top of the pyramid. Like
Mhm.
you could not be in a better position.
Stock
And now
buybacks.
right. And now you're literally like paying into the pyramid scheme. It's like, this is not going to work well for you. These are rug pulls. And so like the gas town coin like dropped like massively. The Ralph coin like dropped massively, like after the Ralph creator, I think he took out like 300K or something, and people or sold like 300K worth of coins, and people were like, oh, he's pulling a rug pull. And I'm like, well, A, what did you expect? But B, it's like, this is why don't like if someone's going to give you free money from something that's, kind of scammy, like I'm not saying don't take the money. I am saying maybe be smart enough not to reinvest it into the scam.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Anyway, that's the only thing I will mention on that because I don't think that that takes anything away from either of those projects or it says that you shouldn't use or play around with either of those ideas at all. But that is just a thing that's happened in the last couple of weeks too, where it's like, oh, and now there's like crypto, the crypto people are trying to get kind of involved with these projects. And I think that that's okay. You know, like I said, I'm not going to judge anybody for taking free money that somebody is going to offer them. I will judge you if you're going to try to then, try to like promote that to your audience and try to be like, oh, this is a great way where you can help me and we can all get rich. It's like, no, there are, if you really want to support creators, like there are things like GitHub sponsors and there are like other methods that you can do that don't involve making financial risks on shitcoins.
I wish anything I made could be popular enough that I could do something that's stupid. Yeah, I'm not gonna pull a rug pull on anyone, but the chances that I'll ever make $300,000 on anything I'm working on, it's pretty slim.
Yeah. But at the same time, like if you were in that position, like I don't know. I mean, I guess that'd be the thing that you would have to kind of figure out yourself would be like, okay, I have access to this amount of money. Am I going to try to, go all in and maybe go full grift to get even
Right.
more? Something tells me that like your own personal ethics would probably preclude you from
Absolutely.
that.
I have spent what how old am I? 47. I've been since I started blogging in like 1999, 2000. I have always adhered to a very strict code and like turning down sponsors I didn't agree with, not doing anything that would be shady, not taking money from anyone I was writing about. Like it's a pain in the ass to try
Yeah.
to be truly ethical, but I feel like I've done it for 30 some years and and I don't know, I wouldn't change it. I'm not rich. I'll never be rich. But yeah, I think ethics are important, especially if
Yeah.
you're in any kind of journalism.
Yeah, if you're in any sort of journalism, I think so. And I think like how people want to define those things, I think it's up to them. And like I said, like I'm not gonna even necessarily like judge people like for because I don't know personally like what my situation would be like. Like if somebody was like, Christina, here's a wallet that has the equivalent of $300,000 in it, and it's just sitting here, and we're not even asking you to do anything with this. I would probably take the money. I'm not gonna
Sure.
lie. I don't know if I would promote it or anything, and maybe I would feel compelled to disclose,
Yeah,
"Hey,
that is
this
a
wallet belongs
life-changing
to
amount
me."
of money, though.
I right. I might feel compelled to disclose, "Hey, someone created this coin in this thing. They created the foam girl coin, and they are giving me, the gas fees,
Yeah,
and I have accepted them."
I feel like you could do it if you were transparent enough about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think where I draw the line is when you then go from like, because again, it's fine if you want to take it. It's then when you are reinvesting the free money into the coin, which I think is just idiotic. Like I think that's just actually dumb. Like I just do like that. Just seems like you were literally, like I said, you're at the top of the pyramid and you're literally like volunteering to get to the bottom again.
Yeah,
Um, and or B, like if you do that and then you try to rationalize it some way, oh, well, I think that this could be a great thing for everybody to, I get rich, you could get rich, we could all get money out of this because this is the future of, creator economy or whatever. It's like, no, it's not. This is gambling.
right.
And you could make the argument to me, and I'd probably be persuaded to be like, this isn't that different from polymarket or any of the other sorts of things. But you know what? I don't do those things either, and I wouldn't promote those things to any audience that I had either. But if somebody wanted to give me free money, yeah, I probably wouldn't turn it down. I'm not going to pretend that my ethics are that strong. I
Sure.
just don't know if I would go on the other end and be like, okay, to the moon, everyone. Let's all go in on the crypto stuff. It's like, okay,
So is
this is
this
not
the
going to end well.
future of open source? Is because I mean,
I don't
like
think
open
so.
source has survived for decades as like a concept, and it's never been terribly profitable, but a lot of large companies have invested in
Yeah.
open source. And I guess at this point, like most of the big open source projects are either run by a corporation or by a foundation that are independently financed. But for a project like Gastown, like, is it the future? Is this is this something people are going to start doing to like kind of make open source profitable?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I think the problem though is that it's not necessarily predictable, right? And not to say that like normal donations or support methods are predictable, but at least that could
They're
be a
not.
thing where you're like, they're not, but it's not volatile to the extent where you're like, okay, I'm basing, like my income based on how well this shitcoin that someone else controls the supply of, someone else,
Sure.
created, someone else, burned, so to speak. Somebody else is going to be controlling and has other things and could be responsible for, big seismic like market movements. Like that I think is very different um than anything else. And so I don't know. I mean, I think that what I do expect that we'll see more of is more and more popular projects, things that go viral, especially around AI, probably being approached or people like proactively creating coins around those things. And there have been some developers who've already, stood up loudly and been like, if you see anybody trying to create a coin around this, it is not associated with me. I won't be associated with any of it. I won't do it. Right. And I think that becomes a problem where you're like, okay, if these things do become popular, then that becomes like another risk if you don't want to be involved in it. If you're involved with a popular project, right? Like that, like the creator of NPM, Isaac. Like I think there's like an NPM coin now, and that he's like involved in, and it's like again, he didn't create it, but he's happy to promote it. He's happy to take the money, and like, look, I'm happy for Isaac to get money from NPM. I am. At the same time, you know, Bun, which is basically like, the replacement for Node and NPM in a lot of ways, they sold to Anthropic for, I guarantee you, a fuckload more money than whatever Isaac is going to make off of some NPM shitcoin.
Yeah.
So like it's all a lottery and it's not sustainable. But I also feel like for a lot of open source projects, and this isn't like me saying that the people shouldn't get paid for the work, quite the contrary. But I think if you go into it with the expectation of I'm going to be able to make a sustainable living off of something, like when you start a project, I think that that is not necessarily going to set you up for, I think that those expectations are misaligned with what reality might be, which again isn't to say that you shouldn't get paid for your work. It's just that the reason that we give back and the reason we contribute to open source is to try to be part of like the greater good and to make things more available to everyone, not to be like, oh, I can, quit my job. Like that would be wonderful. I wish that more and more people could do that. And I give to a lot of open source projects on a monthly basis or on an annual basis.
I,
Um,
I
but
give basically all the money that's given to me for my open source projects, I distribute among other open source projects. So it's a wash for me. But yeah, I pay, 5-10 bucks a month to 20 different projects. And yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's important, but I don't know. I hope that it's not the future. I'm not mad. I think like if that's a way where people can make, an income, but I do, I guess, worry the sense that like if I don't want that to be the reason why somebody would start an open source project is
Sure.
because they're
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I can get rich on a crypto thing,
Yeah.
right? Like because
Yeah.
that's
That
the
kind of
exact wrong reason
That's not
to do
open
it.
source. That's not the open source
No,
philosophy.
no, it's not. And so I mean, but I think if it already exists, I mean, I don't know. I also feel like no one should feel obligated. This should go without saying that if you see a project that you like that is involved in one of those coins, you have zero obligation to be supportive of that in any way. And in
Yeah.
fact, it is probably in your financial best interest to not be involved. It is your life, your money, you do whatever you want, gamble however you want. But I do, I guess I bristle a little bit like if people try to portray it like, oh, well, this is how you can support me by like buying into this thing.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right.
okay, that's all right, like if you want to, again, like I said, if you want to play poly market with this, fine, but don't try to wrap that around like, oh well, this is how you can give back. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you can give back in other ways. Like you can do direct donations, you can do other stuff. Like I would much rather encourage people to be like, rather than putting $100 in Ralph coin, give $100 to the Ralph guy directly.
So speaking of unprofitable open source, I have Apex almost to 1.0. It officially handles, I think, all of the syntax that I had hoped it would handle. It does like crazy things that it's all built on Common Mark GFM, like CMark GFM, GitHub's project. So
Yep.
it does all of that. Plus it handles stuff from like MMark with like indices, and it incorporates oh, I forget the name of it. Like two different ways of creating indices. It handles all kinds of bibliography syntax, like
Yeah, I'm
every
looking at
known
this is
bibliography
awesome.
syntax. I just added you can create insert tags with plus plus, the same way you would create a deletion with tilde tilde. And I've added a full plugin structure, and the plugins now can be project local. So you can have global plugins. And then if you have specific settings, so like my blogs are all based on Cramdown, and like the bunch documentation is based on Cramdown, but then like the mark documentation and most of my writing is based on multi Markdown, and they have different, like for example, the IDs that go on headers. In multi
Mhm.
Markdown, if it has a space in multi Markdown, it gets compressed to no space. In Common Mark or GFM, it gets a dash instead of a space, which means if I have crosslinks, cross references in my document, if I don't have the right header syntax, the cross reference will break. So now I can put a config into like my bunch documentation that tells Apex to use the dash syntax.
Right.
And in my mark documentation, I can tell it to use the multi markdown syntax. And then I can just run Apex with no command line arguments and everything works. And I don't know, I haven't gotten adoption for it. Like the one place I thought it could be really useful was Think,
Mhm.
which has always been based on multi markdown, which um, I love multi markdown and I love Fletcher, and it's missing a lot of what I would consider modern syntax.
Right.
And so I offered it to Think, and it turned out they were working on their own project along the same lines at the same time. Um, but I'm hoping to find some apps that will incorporate it and maybe get it some traction. It's solid. It's fast. It's not as fast as Common Mark, but it does twice as much. Um, like the benchmarks, a complex document renders in Common Mark in about 27 milliseconds, and in Apex it's more like 46 milliseconds. But in the grand scheme of things, I could render my whole blog 10 times faster than I can with Cramdown or Pandoc. And yeah, and I can use all the syntax I want. Did I tell you
Yeah.
about Pandoc divs? The
No.
div extension, like you can in it with the pandoc div extension, you can put colon, colon, colon instead of like backtick, backtick, backtick. So normally like backticks would create a code block. With colons, it
Right.
creates a div, and
Okay.
you can apply inline attribute lists after the colons to give it a class and an ID and any other attributes you want to apply to it. I extended that so that you can do colon, 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 and then type a tag name. So if you type colon, colon, colon aside, and then applied an attribute list to it, it would create an aside tag with those attributes. The the only Pandoc extension that I wish I could support that I don't yet is grid tables. Have you ever seen grid tables?
I have not.
It's kind of like multi markdown table syntax, except you use like plus signs for joints and pipes and dashes, and you actually draw out the table like old ASCII diagrams,
Okay.
and that would render that into a valid HTML table. But that supporting that has just been uh tables are the thing I pulled the most hair out over.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like tables are hard. I also feel like in a lot of circumstances, I mean, obviously people use tables and whatnot, but like only thing I would say to you, like, Apex is so cool, and I hope that other projects adopt it. Potentially with the Pandoc support, as far as you've gotten with it, maybe, projects that support some of Pandoc stuff could, jump into it. But I will say it does feel like once you go into, like, the Pandoc universe, like, that almost feels like a separate thing from the Markdown flavors. Like, that
Yeah,
almost feels like its own, like, ecosystem, you know what I mean?
right. Well, yeah, and I
Um,
haven't tried to adopt everything Pandoc does because
right.
you can also use Pandoc. You can pipe from Apex into Pandoc or vice versa. So I'm not going to try to like one for one
Sure.
replicate Pandoc. And I'm
No, no,
not going to do
totally.
all of Pandoc's export options because Pandoc can
Right.
take HTML in
It
and then
can.
output
It's
PDFs and
incredible.
docx and everything. So you can just pipe output from Apex into Pandoc to create your PDF or whatever you
And
want to
li
do.
and like to me, like that seems ideal, right? But I feel like maybe like adopting some of the other things, especially like their grid, tables, things like that would be cool. But like that feels like that's potentially has the potential to maybe slow down rendering and do other stuff, which
Yeah, for
you
sure.
don't want. And in B, it's like, okay, now are we complicated to the point that like this is now not becoming like one markdown processor to rule them all,
Right.
but
Yeah,
going
the
into
whole
like a
point
different
is to be
project.
able to just run Apex and not worry about what syntax you're using. But grid tables are the kind of thing that are so intentional that you're not going to accidentally use them. Like
Right.
the impetus for Apex was all these support requests I get from people that are like the tilde syntax for underline or delete doesn't work in Mark. And
Right.
it does if you choose the right processor,
But you
but
don't
then you
know
have
that.
to know, yeah, you have to know what processor supports what syntax, and that takes research and time, and bringing stuff in from, say, Obsidian into Mart, you would just kind of expect things to work, and that's why I built
R
Apex, and
n
quick
right.
you are correct that grid tables are the kind of thing no one's gonna use grid tables if they haven't specifically researched what processor
Right.
they're gonna work with.
And they're going to have a way that has their file marked so that it is designated as Pandoc and then whatever, flags for whatever Pandoc features it supports.
Yeah.
Um, does now I know that the whole point of Apex is you don't have to worry about this, but I am assuming based on kind of what you said, like if I pass like arguments like in like a, in a config file or something like where I was like, these documents or this URL or these things are, in this
Yeah.
processor and this and another, then
Yeah.
it can just automatically apply those rules without
Right.
having to infer
Y
based on the syntax, right?
right. It has modes for cram down and common mark and GFM and discount, and you can, like, tell it what mode you're writing in, and it will limit the feature set to just what that processor would handle. And then all of the features have negatable flags on them. So if you wanted to say skip relaxed table rendering, you could turn that off on the command line or in a config file. So yeah, everything you can make it behave like any particular processor. Uh, but I focus mostly on the unified mode, which again, like you don't have to think about which processor you are using.
Are you seeing, I guess, like, in circumstances, like, because in my like, my experience, like, I would never think to like, I would probably, I would probably do, like, what you do, which is, like, I'm gonna use one syntax or one, processor for one type of files and maybe another and another. But I don't think that, like, I would ever have and maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but I don't think I would ever have an instance where I would be, like, mixing the 2 together in the same file.
See,
Um,
that's what's changing for me is I'm switching my blog over to use Apex instead of Cramdown, which means I can now incorporate syntax that wasn't available before. So moving forward, I am mixing things from common mark, things from cram down, things from
Right.
multi markdown. Um, and and like so once you know you have the option
Right. Then you might do that
and you
more.
have all the syntax available, you start doing it. And historically you won't have, but like once you
Right.
get used to it, then you can.
Okay. So here's an existential question for you. At what point then does it go from being, like a rendering engine, kind of like an omni rendering engine, to being a syntax and a flavor in and of itself?
That is that yeah. No, that's a very valid question and one that I have to keep asking myself. Because I never okay, so what to encapsulate what you're saying, if you got used to writing for Apex and you were mixing your syntaxes,
Right.
all of a sudden you have a document that can't render in anything except Apex,
Correct.
which
Correct.
does eventually make it its own. Yeah,
Well,
no,
that's what I was gonna
it's
say.
always
I
it's a concern the whole time.
Well, and I wouldn't even necessarily. I mean, I think it could be two things, right? I mean, like you could have it live in two worlds where, like, on the one hand, it could be like the rendering engine to end all rendering engines, and it can render, files in any of them, and you can specify like whatever, like in like a toml or something, like, these files are this format, these are these, and maybe have some sort of something, even like header files or whatever, to be like, this is what this rendering engine is, with your projects, to have it do that, um, or have it infer, based on the logic that you're importing. But it could also be one of those things where you're like, okay, I just have created, like, the omni syntax, and that's a thing that maybe you get people to try to encourage or try to adopt, right? Like, it's like,
Yeah,
okay, you can always just use common mark, you can always just
sure.
use GFM,
Yeah,
you can always just use multi markdown, but we support these other things too from these other systems, and you can intermix and match them. Because I do feel like at a certain point, like, at least the way you're running it yourself, you have your own syntax.
yeah. Yeah. No, you have perfectly encapsulated the major design concern. And I think you're correct. It can be both things at once. But I have like nobody needs another markdown syntax. Like there are so many flavors right now. Okay, there may be a dozen. It's not like an infinite number,
Right.
but
But right.
there's enough that the confusion is real, and we don't need yet another markdown flavor, but we do need a universal processor that makes the differentiations less. But yeah, no, it's I need to nail down that philosophy and really like put it into writing and say this is the design goal of this project, which I have like hinted at, but I'm a scattered thinker, and like part of the design philosophy is if someone says, "Hey, could you make this work?" I just wanted a project where I could say, "Yeah, I'm going to make that work. I'm going to add this somewhat esoteric syntax and it's just going to work and it's not going to affect anything else and you don't have to use it. But if you do, there it is." So it's kind of it was designed to bloat to a certain extent. Um, but yeah, I need to actually write a page that's just the philosophy and really put all my thoughts together on that.
Yeah. No, because I was just kind of thinking, I was like, because it's so cool. But the way that I would have envisioned using it, like, I still, like, it's cool that you can mix all those things in together. I still feel like I probably wouldn't, because I'm not you. And so then I would just have like this additional dependency that it's like,
Yeah,
okay, if something happens to Apex one day and that's the only thing that can render my
yeah.
documents, then, like, you know what I mean? And if it's not getting updated anymore or whatever, then I'm kind of like SOL.
It's it's like
Um,
Maruku. Do you remember Maruku?
Vaguely.
It's the project is kind of dead, and a lot of its syntax has been incorporated into various other processors. But if you built your whole blog on Maruku, you have to be able to run like a 7-year-old binary
Right.
and it'll never be updated, and eventually you're going to run into trouble. The nice thing about Unix based stuff is has a you can stop developing it and it'll work
Yes.
for a decade, um, until like there's a major shift in processors. But like just the shift to ARM, like if Maruku was only ever compiled for Intel and it wasn't open source, it would be gone. You wouldn't be able to
Right.
run it anymore. So yeah, these
Right.
things can happen.
Well, and I just even think about like, the fact that like, like some of the early processors, like I remember like back, I mean, this is a million years ago, but having to use like certain like Perl, based things, but depending on like whatever your backend system was, then you move to PHP, then maybe you move to, Ruby if you're using like Jekyll, and maybe you move to something else. And I was like, okay, what will the thing be in the future? Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's open source and there's a way that, you can write a new processor for that, but it does create like dependencies on top of dependencies, which is why
Right.
I kind of feel like I like having like the Omni processor. I don't know if like for me, I'm like, okay, I would probably be personally leery about intermingling all my different
Yeah.
syntaxes
So
together.
to that end though, that is why I wanted it in C. Because C will probably
Yes.
never die. C can be compiled on just about any platform, and it can be
Yep.
used with like if you have a Jekyll blog and you want to incorporate a C program into a gem, it's no problem. You can incorporate it into just about any language you want to use it with. So like C was important. I'm most comfortable writing in Ruby, but to do something like this in Ruby would A, be really slow, and B, have
Yeah.
like Ruby is changing so fast right now. Like stuff that worked in 2.7 no longer works. Stuff that works in 4.0 doesn't work in 3.3. So like Ruby is moving quickly and all of my
And
scripts
breaking.
require constant updates. Yeah,
Hmm.
like there's a method in Ruby called exist that you can use on a file object. And so it's like file.exist question mark, and it tests if a file exists. But it used to be exists with an S, EXISTS, and Ruby 3.0 broke that. So you have to use exist singular. And all of my scripts that use exist plural
Oh my
had to
God.
be rewritten. Yeah. Yeah. No, Ruby is not it's not a
This
stable platform for this kind of thing.
That seems like that's a great use case for AI. I'm not even gonna lie, like even more than just like a regex sort of thing. Like that would be the sort of thing where I would be like, I would feed that into like
Yeah.
to Claude, and I'd be like, "Hi, please find all the instances of this function and update it to this,"
Yeah.
and
That's what with the
and then run
gems.
tests,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then run
With
tests and make sure that
that
it
is
doesn't break.
that is what I love AI for right now is
Yes.
tests. Like I can say, here's this new feature I wrote, write tests for it. And it writes all the fixtures, it writes all the unit tests, it writes all the implementation tests, and I can just run the test and know that it
Yeah.
works. And that's the kind tests take a fair amount of thinking to make something tests that validly tests the feature and is going to break if something actually breaks, but isn't going to break. Do you know what I'm not saying this
Yes.
very well, but like tests take thinking, and AI is really good at writing tests. AI is really good at analyzing what does this feature do and what are the edge cases for it and how can I test it? And I love AI for that. But yeah, when I get bug reports on gems that I wrote like 5 years ago in Ruby, I don't fix them by hand anymore.
Right.
I feed I bring the whole project into, like in my case, Cursor, and generally I'll use Claude or sometimes ChatGPT Codex now, but I'll just have it read the whole project and be like, here's the bug. And I don't even tell it what files. I don't even give it like particular context. I just give it the whole project, and it usually can solve the bug in about a minute. So I'm a proponent of AI coding, I guess. I was hesitant. I was a naysayer for a long time, but I wouldn't go back now. I worry, like, if something crashes and the market no longer will bear AI development, I would hate to see all these tools go away because I do not want to go back to the
Right.
dark ages of coding.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for lots of reasons, I don't want that to happen. I'm obviously financially vested in that. I think all of us are, whether we want to be or
Right.
not. Like,
Yeah.
it's like if you have any sort of retirement account, like it is.
Yeah. It is
But
it is
even
the bulk of the stock index right now.
but even even putting that aside, yeah, to your point, like I wouldn't want to have to give those things up, and so I would hope that if yeah, if it becomes too much, that the tools don't just go away. Maybe they have to evolve. Maybe they have to like change a little bit. But I mean that is, I think, why it's important to have people who are doing open things and
Yeah.
like I don't know if you've played with open code or not, but
No.
it's like a so it's basically like a Claude code, but it's open source, and you can bring your Copilot subscription, you can bring your Codex subscription, you can bring your Claude subscription, but Anthropic's been real shitty about that, where they're like, oh no, you can only use your Claude credits on Claude code for your subscription price, which like, whatever, fair enough. But like you could actually log in with your Copilot Pro or Pro Plus or Enterprise subscription and use those credits in open code if that's what you want to do. If you don't want to use the Copilot
That's
CLI
cool.
or the SDK, but you can also use it with Codex and other stuff. And I like things like that. Like I like that people are creating like these open tools and kind of giving people choice in terms of how the agents work. Again, like there's no guarantee like of this bubble burst. It's not like the people who are doing this, for free or who are being sustained by a startup are necessarily going to still be able to be around, but at least it's not locked behind, some proprietary doors.
Yeah.
Like the models might
Yeah.
be, but if you can bring other models with it, and if you have these other agent things, then at least that's my hope. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I know
Should
we're running out of time. Do you want to do gratitude?
Yeah. Yeah, we can mine's gonna be super quick. Um, I am this week going to mention Backdrop, which is a Mac app that does animated wallpapers, and they have a really nice library of just they're video loops, and it works on your desktop and on your lock screen. And I use like some cyberpunk ones that are like city nightscapes with just like a light rain effect across them. And I enjoy it. I get a kick out of it now that I have enough processing power and memory to justify running video in the background. But
Right, right. No, I love that. I don't think I've used Backdrop, but I think that it looks awesome because that's been one of the things people have wanted to try to kind of create is like, okay, how do I create the live, lock screens, how to create the live wallpapers? Because like that's a feature that I guess they introduced maybe two versions of Mac OS ago
yeah,
and are pretty cool. But yeah, you do need some processing power. You don't necessarily want to, I don't even know if I think they do run on Intel machines, but you don't really want to run on an Intel machine.
no,
Um,
no,
but they
definitely
can be
not.
cool, but like it's they've made the process like it used to be fairly easy to like make your own screensavers, and like Apple is deprecated. I think a lot of those
Yeah.
libraries and things.
There
Like
used to
I
be
had
so many cool screensavers.
I had the aquarium one
Yeah.
for years, and I love that one. I even bought it. And like it got to a certain point, like that guy was like, I can't update this anymore. And I was like, that sucks because I loved the aquarium one so much. I had that one for like 20 years. I even had that one on Windows, I think. And like it was great. But I'm glad to see that they've done that. And I guess you pronounce the company's name Sindori. It's Cindori. But they have a couple of apps. One that I've used is Sensei, which is kind of like iStat, and it's like a system monitor app. And I bought that on a Black Friday sale um, a while back. If you have iStat Plus, I'm not going to say that you need to get it because they're pretty superfluous, but it is a pretty cool like advanced like kind of like status bar like app. But it also includes some things like I think it has like an uninstaller and some other types of tools in it. So I haven't used Backdrop, but I have used Sensei, and I can give that a +1. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Um
There used to be a screensaver that could run shell scripts and Apple scripts and put the output on your screen, and then
Oh, yes.
you could have different scripts run like when it starts and when it
Yes.
ends. And yeah, that's what I ran for like 15 years.
Yeah. What was that called? Because I can't remember.
I
But
don't
yeah,
remember. I
yeah,
don't
because
remember.
I think on Windows there was a similar thing. It was called like Rain Meter or something, and then there was like I don't remember what it was called on Mac OS, but yeah, I think that went away a long time ago.
Yeah.
But like probably a decade ago.
Yeah, I want to say
But
like 2015 was
yeah, I was
about
gonna
when I
say that
remember. Yeah.
that's what I remember too. I was like, oh yeah, because that stuff was cool. Because I think I probably learned about it from you. And I had like certain things that it was like, oh yeah, okay, so this will run and it'll put the output on the screen, and then I can see these things. And like that was super slick. But yeah, it's cool to see animated live wallpapers that people can create themselves. Like that's pretty fun. Okay, my pick is we're talking about kind of agents and whatnot. There's a project. It was known as Claudebot, and so if you've been on like Twitter threads, Mastodon, I think a little bit, you might have seen it. It is now known as Moltbot, Moltbot, because Anthropic didn't like the name Claude, even though it was spelled with a WD. And it is basically like a personal AI assistant. People are like buying Mac Minis for this thing. You don't need to have your own Mac Mini. You can use it on a BPS. You can use it on a Raspberry Pi, but it is probably better to give it a dedicated machine or container, or VPS or whatever, rather than to run it like alongside all of your other stuff. But basically, the idea is that it's kind of like a personal assistant. So you can create like a WhatsApp or a Telegram or like an iMessage account with it, and basically you can text it your assistant things to be like, do research on X for me. And it will then spin up, an instance of Claude or Codex or whatever model you're choosing, logging in with your credentials and do that task for you. And then text you back a link that's like, okay, here's all your research, right? You could also tell us to do things like, okay, go through my inbox and, filter all these messages and then give me a summary of these things or clean out my accounts or do this, right? So you can really kind of have it do tasks for you. You can have it do coding things too, but it's pretty cool. Federico wrote about it on Mac Stories, but a lot of people have written about it. Uh, 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 the developer is pretty active. He's actually incredibly active. He has actually gone on record as to be like, I am not going to do any sort of crypto thing. And so if you see anybody with a coin in my name, that is not me.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, but Moltbot is really cool if you have like an older Mac lying around. Like it doesn't have to be the latest or anything, because all it's basically doing is acting as like a message gateway to basically be like a way to
Would
send
it
things.
work?
Now,
Would it work on like a 2012 Mac
oh yeah,
Mini? Because I
oh
have
yeah,
like 3 of those laying around.
yes, it'll work on that. It'll work on a Raspberry Pi, right? Like
Okay.
it'll work on a $5 a month VPS. But yeah, no, it would work great on a Mac Mini, and that would actually be cool because then you could use iMessage, to
Yeah.
communicate with it. But you could use Telegram, you can use WhatsApp, and it's pretty cool. So that's my pick. The only thing I will say is that like it runs best kind of using like Claude Opus 4.5. That is the most expensive Claude. So, you can spend a lot of money on that if you're using API keys or if you don't have like subscriptions. You can log in with accounts from, various services, but people are building all kinds of extensions for it so that you can do all kinds of things. Like you can control your Sonos, you can transcribe things, you can use it with Obsidian, you can generate images with Nano Banana, like you can do all kinds of you can like do searches across the web and then like extract those results and like have them sent to you. Like you can control your lights. Like people are building a ton of stuff for that and building kind of their own things too. And so um anyway, big fan. And it's kind of taken over the world. People are like joking where they're like, oh, there's going to be a run on Mac Minis because of Claudebot. And it's like, okay, there's not. But also, I would not say do not buy a Mac Mini for Claudebot. I do think the M4 Mac Mini, I still, especially with the RAM crisis, I still feel like for $500, which is what you can usually get them for, especially if you use the student pricing that they don't ever check anything on. I feel like that's the best deal in tech. But there are plenty of
Yeah.
things to do on that. Like you don't have to. You definitely don't need to spin that if you just want to play around with Multibot. So that's my pick of the week.
Awesome. I have a couple Mac Minis and a Raspberry Pi laying around. I might have to give this a weekend.
Yeah, give it a shot. Yeah, give it a shot because I think this is exactly the sort of shit that you'd be really into.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a wide-ranging episode.
It was.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Have a good rest of your week. I'll let you
Thank
know
you.
if I get water back.
Yeah, let me know. And yeah, I'm gonna be gone for a couple of weeks because I'm having surgery in 6 days. But I will talk to you when I'm back, and I'll let you know. I'll see if I can like maybe record a message or something if I'm not on the next episode, just to like let everybody know like I survived.
Yeah, we'd
Um,
want to know. We'd want to know.
Yeah. If I didn't survive, I'm sure that like there will be ways that people will find out. But yeah,
All right. Well, good luck with your surgery and
Thank
get
you.
some sleep.
Get some sleep.
The system is going down now.